Hello everyone, Arion James here from Tint Acquisition. Tint shop owners don't know what they're actually worth per hour, or at least they think they do. But when we run through the numbers together, they are shocked because they didn't calculate it properly. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to calculate how much you as a tinter or a tint shop owner is actually worth, because it might not be the number that you think it is. So I suggest you grab a pen and paper and we're going to go through all the numbers together, and then you're going to be able to calculate how much you're actually worth, but also how to substantially increase that number per hour without adding more time. Let's get into the Miro board. So, how much is a tint shop owner actually worth? Now, before we get into it, I want you to do one thing. Think about your last tint job or your average tint job. How much did you charge and how long did it take? Divide how much you charged by how long it took and you've got your hourly rate. Now, by the end of this video, you'll realize that number is actually wrong. It's going to be lower. And in this video, I'm going to show you where the difference has gone. So follow along, get a pen and paper and write your own numbers down. The numbers I'm using are just generic, the averages. Some of them I have just pulled out my ass, to be honest. But follow along with your own numbers. But, you know, these are tailored to tint shops. And I'm assuming you're only offering window tint at this point. So let's say your average job is $350. And this job takes you 3 hours to complete. So think about your average tint job. What's your average order value? How long does it take you to complete that job on average? So it might be more than this, might be less than that, might take you more time, might take you less time. So write these down as you go along. But in this example, $350 over 3 hours is $116 per hour, which is a good trade. $116 per hour is good going. But your real hourly rate is actually going to be $58, nearly half of the $116 per hour that you thought it was. And this is pre-tax as well. So post-tax is probably going to be like 37 to 42. I don't know, depends on your state, depends where you are, your tax laws, that sort of thing. But pre-tax, your real hourly rate is going to be $58. Now, this is where you might have missed things. The time you forgot to count. So before the job, inquiry and questions. So maybe you're in the DMs and you're going back and forth with the customer, and that takes 15 minutes before you close the job. Quoting and sending takes 8 minutes, especially if you're doing flat glass. You send like a formal quotation, you have to edit it, that sort of thing. That takes you 8 minutes. Follow up and confirmation. This is assuming that they close, by the way. If they don't close, then you've just lost all this time. 15 minutes. Stock check and reminder, 10 minutes. So checking that you actually have what they want in stock and sending them reminders manually the day before. Say it takes 10 minutes. Now, the total here is up to 48 minutes. So think about how long it takes you to do each thing and then write it down. Try and be as pessimistic as possible with these numbers, because we're going to solve this down the line and see how much time you can actually save. But in this case, you know, before the job, you've spent 48 minutes. That's assuming they close, by the way. Now, the job itself, greeting and inspection, 5 minutes. So the customer comes, you're chatting with them, building some rapport with them. Maybe you pull their car into your unit, inspect the car, make sure like the glass is not damaged, that sort of thing. Preparation and cleaning takes you 25 minutes. So taking all the seals out, cleaning the windows. If the car's just been driven around in a desert or something or in mud, it might take a bit longer. What I used to do when I ran my tint shop was, before even applying any tint, I would do all the prep first. So taking all the weather strips out, cleaning all the windows if they were really dirty, and I would do all that across all the windows that needed to be tinted before I actually started tinting. So let's say that takes you 25 minutes. Again, might take you more time, might take you less. The actual install takes you 90 minutes. So again, be pessimistic with your numbers here. How long does it take you on average to actually tint a window outside of prepping and cleaning, outside of greeting and inspection as well? Quality control and handover. So after the job's done, you're doing a quality check. Well, I'm hoping you do. Checking there's any bubbles, anything that might need to be redone, any creases, and a handover. And this takes 20 minutes. So that includes, you know, after the job's done, customers there, you're again chatting with them, talking about the car, they're happy, whatever. Now, that has taken 140 minutes. Again, this might take you more time, this might take you less time. So hopefully you're writing these numbers down as you go along. Now, after the job, chatting and payment. So you're chatting with the customer, again, building some rapport with them and taking a payment. That takes you 15 minutes. Tidying and resetting. So you might have like loads of tint on the floor. You might have loads of water on the floor from spraying, and you need to clean that up before the next job comes in. Or you do it at the end of the day after all the jobs are come. I don't know. But I'm not going to tell you how to run your tint shop. Follow-up queries. So in case the customer messages you saying, I don't know, is this normal? Are these bubbles meant to be normal? Blah, blah, blah. And you just tell them, yeah, blah, blah, blah. And that takes you 10 minutes. Now, that is 40 minutes of time after the job. And if we add all these together, you get 228 minutes, which is 3 hours and 48 minutes, compared to the 3 hours you thought it was, that you're making $116 per hour. It's actually taking you 48 minutes more than you expected. Now, this is where it gets interesting. The costs you forgot to count. So we've got direct costs and indirect costs. So the direct cost first. The film cost. How much it actually costs you to do that job. So in this case, I'm assuming we're going to be using ceramic film, which is the highest quality, and therefore it's going to cost the most. And for this job in particular, it cost us $55 to $80. Now, this is important because you need to know how much it costs you in film, whether it's ceramic, carbon, dyed, whatever. You need to know how much it costs you per square foot. If you're American, if you're in the UK, it'll be square meter. And you need to know this because a lot of people don't actually know this because they think, oh, the tint itself is really cheap, so I don't bother taking that into account. Cleaning and tools wear, $10. So, for example, let's say one tint tool, like a Blue Max, for example. You replace your Blue Max every 10 jobs, and that Blue Max costs you $100. So each job, that Blue Max is costing you $10. Again, those are just, numbers for simplicity. Do your own due diligence here. What tools, how much are they costing you? And I'm hoping you're replacing them after they wear down because you don't want to be tinting a customer's car with rundown tools. Electricity and utilities, $5. So how long it took you, with a heat gun, maybe equated to $2.50 for that job. Utilities, so like water and the baby shampoo or the soap that you use in your bottle. The same thing here. If you're using baby shampoo and it's costing you $100, $10, let's say $100 is a bit much for baby shampoo, I think, unless you Diddy. It costs you $10 for baby shampoo, and it costs you $10 for the baby shampoo, and you get 100 squirts out of it. So each squirt is basically costing you 10 cents. I think that's the math is right there, but I don't know, I'm just doing this on the fly. But let's just say, in this sake, electricity and utilities cost you $5. So your direct costs are $80. Most people would just take into account the film costs. Again, this could be as little as $55 or as high as $80, but we've not considered stuff like the cleaning, so your cloths or your paper towels if you use them, and your tools wear, $10. Electricity and utilities, $5. So your direct total is all direct costs. And if you don't know how much it costs you for your tools wear, your cleaning, your electricity, your utilities, I suggest you get these numbers as soon as possible because you can't measure what you can't improve. You can't improve what you can't measure, basically. Now, indirect costs per job. Let's say your rent per job costs you $25. So let's say your rent is $1,500 a month and you're doing 60 jobs per month. That will be 1,500 divided by 60, which I think is 25. So I think so. Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. $25. So each job is costing you $25 in rent. Your van truck costs $10. Maybe you're mobile. Maybe you need to incorporate your fuel costs in there. Wear and tear on the vehicle, registration, insurance, maintenance, all that sort of stuff. It costs you $10 per job. Your insurance, so whether it's like your van insurance, your car insurance, unit insurance, business rates, costs you $7.50 per job. Again, hopefully you're going through with your actual numbers. Marketing and software costs you $6.67. So it could be things like your customer acquisition costs, if you're running ads, software, so like marketing software, TintWiz, your phone bill, that sort of thing. Not your personal phone, your business phone. How much that costs you per month, and then you'll be able to calculate it per job, as if you know how many jobs you're doing per month. So your indirect total is $49.17 in this example. So you should now have your direct costs and your indirect costs. So add them together and we get $129.17. Now deduct that from our average order value of $350 and we get $220.83 in gross profit, which is not bad at all. Now we divide that over 3.8 hours. So 3 hours and 48 minutes is around 3.8 hours. And we get $58.11, which is your real hourly rate. Again, this is pre-tax. If you're in America, I think you pay like 15.3% self-employment tax and then income tax on top of that. I think it depends on your state. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong there. So from the $116 that you thought was your hourly rate is actually $58. Where is it? $58.11. Yeah, $58.11 with all these included. Now, you might actually have more costs than these, they might be less. Again, this is just for the sake of this video, just keeping things simple. Now, if you have employees, this is where it gets a bit interesting, because there are hidden costs with having employees, and employers don't actually realize how much employees actually cost outside of their salary. They think if they're paying a $50,000 salary, that's how much they're going to cost them, and that's it. So, as a tint shop owner, we've got a table here. As a tint shop owner and a W2 tint installer employee, your annual earnings. So let's again, we're just making assumptions here. You generate $200,000 in revenue per year, and your gross profit is $165,000. Now, that's your annual earnings as a tint shop owner. As an installer employee, you might pay them around $45,000 to $55,000 annually, and this is like the average for a window tint installer in the US. So now we have got self-employment tax and payroll. So if you're a tint shop owner in the US, you pay 15.3% self-employment tax. And on a 40K net profit, that's going to be $6,120. A normal net profit number is 20% of your revenue, considered pretty healthy. So 20% of 200,000 is 40,000. 40,000 you will pay just over $6,000 in self-employment tax. Now, the tint installer pays 7.65%, and the employee covers the other half. So the employee is also paying an extra 7.65% for the employee's payroll, basically. Health insurance. As a tint shop owner, you pay that yourself, And as a tint installer employee, your employer contributes. I don't actually know the number, but I'm assuming you're going to be contributing to your window tint installer for working with you. So already we've got tax and health insurance. You're paying 7.65% on behalf of your employee compared to their salary. So again, these are hidden costs that you might not have known about. I mean, I'm hoping you should have known about that anyway, but for the video. Next is retirement / 401k. Piss off. As a tint shop owner, you fund yourself or you go without. As a tint shop owner, you don't really decide on a pension or something like that, or a retirement fund. You have to fund it yourself or you go without. Now, as an installer employee, I think on average, you will do a 3% employer match, which based on this salary number here is between $1,550 and $1,650 per year on a 45 to 55K salary. Now, I'm pretty sure in the US that this is actually optional. Like, you don't have to do a 401k or something like that, but it does attract like better talent, I think. So if you are serious about scaling your tin shop, this is definitely recommended. And it's going to attract much better talent, which you definitely want for a tin shop, because you don't want to hire a bad tinter and then they ruin your business, by doing a bad job and then a customer leaves a review. And then we've got the financial risk. Obviously, you should know this yourself. It's all on you as a tin shop owner, and the tint installer, there's no risk on them. So your hidden costs on top of an employee's salary is going to be between $15,000 and $30,000. Again, this is such a broad range. I couldn't give an exact number because it depends on so many things. It depends on your state, how much tax you pay, whether you do contribute to an employee's 401k. So you should have like a closer range to here. So this example is on top of the salary. So if I have a tint installer employee that I'm paying 50 grand towards, if I have a tint installer employee that I'm paying $50,000, that is going to cost me at least an extra 15 grand. So it's going to cost me at least $65,000 per year on this employee, even though I'm only paying him $50,000. Now, the question begs, let me just move these out of the way. How do I increase my hourly rate without adding extra hours? And there are 3 levers to this. If you pull these 3 levers, you're going to absolutely skyrocket your earnings. You're going to save a lot of time, and that is pretty much the aim for any business owner, is to make as much money as possible in as little time as possible. So there are 3 levers we need to pull. Lever 1, raising your job value. Every $50 increase in your average job value adds $39 to your annual gross profit, assuming you do 15 jobs per week. So this is the number one biggest, highest leverage thing you can do right now, is by increasing your prices. You might have to go through testing. You might not want to increase your prices by $50 all at once. Maybe you have to do it gradually, maybe $10 every week or two or something. There's a concept called, well, it's not a concept, it's a thing called price elasticity of demand. If you know about that, so you need to do some testing. So maybe your average order value is $200 and every week you increase it by $10. If you increase it by $10 and you're still getting the same amount of inquiries and closed jobs, then that $10 is fine. You can keep that. And then you go again the next week, increase it by $20. If you get up to the point where you're increasing your prices by $50 and you're losing customers, you might have to reduce your prices back down again, unless you position differently. But that is another video for another day. So again, you might have to go through testing. Don't bump your prices by $50 all at once. And at a $75 increase, which is, for most shops, is completely achievable with better positioning, we will add an extra $58,000, $58,500 per year gross profit, not revenue, not net profit, gross profit. So that is the biggest thing you can do. Like today, you increase your prices by $10. Do that for 1 or 2 weeks. If you find that customers aren't that sensitive to it, they don't mind paying an extra $10, increase it by another $10 for the next 2 weeks and just see how it goes until you find that sweet spot. And align that with better positioning, then you can absolutely justify a $75 increase over time. Now, the second lever, cutting your non-billable time. So this is the time that you spend that you don't get paid for. And this is just like a list of examples. So there could be like hundreds of these, but we'll go through them. Quoting a customer who never books. Replying to tie kickers on Instagram. So again, this is very common with tint shops. You probably get like a lot of customers asking you, oh, how much for this? How much for that? Can you knock $20 off it? Blah, blah, blah. I can get you loads of jobs. No, like that's probably one of the most frustrating things in running a tint shop. Doing the books at the end of the week. Scrolling competitors' pages. So this is another thing. You will disguise scrolling. You will disguise doom scrolling as work because you're stalking your competitors, when you, in reality, you'll do that for 10 minutes and then start watching like cat videos or something. Sending a follow-up that goes nowhere. Waiting for a customer who shows up late or doesn't show at all. Cleaning and resetting the workspace between jobs. Again, this is time that you don't get paid for. Ordering supplies online. Responding to a bad Google review, or any review for that matter. Again, that probably doesn't take a lot of time, and a lot of these things you do actually have to do. But there's a lot of stuff that we can automate and systemize to cut your non-billable time. So how do we do it? You implement an automated follow-up system that eliminates 3 hours per week. So think about it. If you're following up with every single lead that comes in manually, think about how much time that takes across a week. But that can be totally automated with the right copy and really effective. So implement an automated follow-up system that will eliminate 3 hours per week. You implement a booking system that eliminates 2 hours per week. So there are some tint shops out there that allows the customer to book themselves in, essentially. So they'll have like a live calendar on their website, and the customers can pay a deposit and book themselves in on the shop's availability. That way they never have to speak to anyone. They don't have to go back and forth with the shop or anything like that. They can book themselves in, which I think is pretty smart. And that saves you 2 hours per week. You also implement a content system that replaces doom scrolling and drives leads. 3 hours per week saved. You implement a proper content system. So not just posting a picture of the last car you did. That's barely content. Every tint shop does this. You want to make actual content that's actually going to get you views and leads as well. And that saves you 3 hours per week. And altogether, you've recovered 8 hours by doing all these. And in those 8 hours, you could have done 3 extra jobs that got you $220 in gross profit, which over 50 working weeks will get you to $33,124. So just like on your pen and paper, just list down things that you need to do but don't get paid for. Could be some of these, could be more stuff. Write it down and be realistic. How much time does it actually take you to do all this stuff that you're not getting paid for? And think of how many jobs you could do in that time if only you had an automated system, instead of doing everything manually. So this is more about saving time rather than making more money. But, you can never get that time back. You can always make more money. You can never get that time back. And that time is just totally wasted because you're doing menial, boring tasks that could be totally automated. Now, the third lever, increase volume through a proper marketing system. Right now, most tint shops get customers from word of mouth and hope, which is a poor strategy. As effective as word of mouth is, As much as you can predict how many jobs you're going to get based off word of mouth next month, it's kind of just, hit and hope. You have a proper content system, Google Ads, follow up, these generate predictable inbound leads. So if you have all these in place, you can actually predict how many jobs you're going to get next week or next month, as opposed to just relying on hope. Don't never rely on word of mouth. I know there are shops that do that and they're very busy, but they've probably been in the game for like 10, 20 years or something. We want money in the bank today, And doing all this, you add an extra 5 jobs per week at your current average gross profit. So our gross profit, again, from that where's it gone now? $350. That's our revenue. And our gross profit, we now know, is $220. We do that, $220.83 across 5 jobs times 50 working weeks, you get an annual gross profit, you just saw it there, of $55,208. Annual gross profit. This is money in the bank to be spent pre-tax from a system that runs in the background while you're tinting. So this is making you more money and it's saving you time, and you've added an extra 55K a year because you've implemented the right systems. This is how important having systems are and having automations in place, because you don't realize how much time it's going to save you until you actually do it. Now, let's pull all 3 levers together. You've made an extra $58,500 from raising your average order value. Again, you have to go through testing to get this, but assuming you increase it by $75 eventually. You've made an extra $33,124 from cutting your non-billables. So from reducing time and replacing that time with something more profitable. And you make an extra $55,208 from marketing volume. So you have actual systems in place. You're running proper content, not just posting random pictures. You're making proper content. You've got your ads running. You've got multiple avenues of leads coming in. So you're not just relying on one. Again, diversification is super important. Add all these together, you have now just made $146,832 gross profit per year, all because you decided to pull these 3 levers. Like, just think about that for a second. All this time that you're spending doing manual follow-ups, doom scrolling, with no systems in place, you're doing everything manually by yourself. And even if you're hiring someone to do all this, they're going to cost you an arm and a leg compared to how much we would charge to do it. It will be a fraction of what you're paying them. And because you did all that, you've now added an extra nearly 150 grand gross profit, which is absolutely insane. And you've not increased your skill set as a tinter. You're not working more hours. You're not getting better at tinting. You just have a better system behind the shop, and you're running your business better. Now, if you watched this whole video and you did the maths on your own numbers, you probably have a real hourly rate sitting in front of you right now. And it's probably lower than the number you started with, but that is okay. Now you know. Knowing is basically the starting point for changing it. Now, if you implement the 3 levers we talk about, raising the job value, cutting your non-billable time, and building a marketing system, this is exactly what we help tint shops implement. All these levers and more. We implement this for tint shops at a fraction of the price that you're paying for your marketing guy in-house. This is not generic marketing advice. I've lived through this. I've run my own tint shop, both car tints and flat glass. So I know everything inside out. I'm really confident that I can guarantee you results. And that sounds very markety of me, but I would say that there are less than 1% of marketing agencies or marketing people out there targeting a niche that they have actually been a part of. So that's why I work with tint shops exclusively, because I don't know any other industry. I don't know real estate, don't know dentistry, don't care. But when it comes to window tinting and how to scale a tint shop, you bet I know. You bet. If you found this video helpful and you as a tint shop owner want to increase your value per hour, click the link in the description and book a discovery call with me, and let's see how we can scale your business.